Welcome everyone. We got Charlie here, and he's been a little bit longer, plus minus, a little bit longer than 6 months here doing the Kinetic method, and he's going to share with us today his progression, his success, and any insights that may be helpful to anyone who may be sitting on the fence or wants to learn more. So Charlie, good to have you on and welcome.
Thanks, Mauro.
Let's start off by sharing a little bit more with everyone, like your age, your height, your weight, maybe starting weight, current weight, your lifestyle, so that everyone gets the full context of what we're working with, lifestyle-wise, age-wise, height-wise, before we go into the details there.
Okay, I'm 5'10". I weighed 251 pounds on January 3rd when we started. I'm 60 years old. My lifestyle got me to that point at 251, which was more sedentary, more the Charlie the weekend party guy, and eat what I want when I want, some Oreo cookies and milk before you go to bed at night, and have my own business now for over 30 years. So there's always been this ups and downs of stress that go with that. So you self-medicate with whatever you can. Sometimes that's food, sometimes that's party, sometimes that's this. And so that's what got me there.
Mm-hmm. You have a pretty interesting story. Like I remember when we first touched base, it was late, Q4 last year, and when we touched base there, you also told me, hey, I've had some health issues in the past. Like, can you share a little bit more about that, as much as you're open to, in terms of maybe heart health, and everything that you were struggling with before you started?
Sure. So a quick tour of the last 25 years, give or take. At 38 years old, I had my first heart attack. I had already had my own business for roughly 7 or 8 years, and learned that I have a disease called cardiovascular atherosclerosis, which means a hardening of the arteries. And I had it in a real concentrated level, obviously, having the first 100% 7 blockages when I was 38 years old. The interesting part there is I was 1.5 miles deep in the woods hunting for deer when that happened. And so I had to walk myself out and get to the hospital and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, fast forward all of that. There was no damage to my heart during that process, and I recovered pretty well. But I immediately got onto the program and was on my way to losing a bunch of weight and getting back into shape. But business being what it is, it starts to gravitationally pull you back into those old bad habits. And so I got into them. Then at 46, the second one. So I had another one, and then that involved open heart surgery, triple bypass surgery, because the disease didn't go away, so it just stayed. And it doesn't sit dormant. It's a slow, progressive thickening in the walls of the artery, and they ultimately close and the heart goes, wah! So that's what happens. Anyways, again, dive back into, boy, I got to do something about this. So you start getting back into your routine again, and a little more exercise and a little this, but again, the gravitational pull of life just pulls you back in, and you start self-medicating and you go back into your old habits, and that's what starts to happen. And then fast forward into 2020, the year that everyone hated with COVID. Well, COVID knocked on my door and wreaked havoc with me and attacked my appendix and wound up putting me in the hospital. And it was a severe attack, and there was so much toxins in my blood that it attacked my heart. And so I wound up having a pretty serious heart attack while I was in the hospital during COVID, and you're all by yourself. I was in there, I think, for 18 days total. Knocked on death's door a couple times and came out. once in the heart and once in, because my gut completely shut down. It stopped working, and it stopped working for like 7 days. And they were talking about a lot of guys and folks and ladies, whatever, don't make it after 4 days. So I fought pretty hard and fought my way out, and I came back out of it, and I got back into my lifestyle with the advice of a cardiologist who said, Charlie, this time you lost 20% of your heart. So your previous 2 heart attacks didn't cause any damage. This one did. So you are at the point now in your life at 58 years old, you have to decide if you're going to make some changes. You need to lose weight. And I don't mean 10 or 15 pounds. You need to lose 50 pounds. You need to stop eating just whatever you want and start focusing a little bit better on a more healthier diet. And number 3, this good time Charlie party thing has got to stop. And you're going to have to really back that off. And I mean, just completely shut it down. And so, of course, I'm listening, and I do my thing, and I go back into my world, and then back into my business, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm doing my thing, and I get a LinkedIn message from Mauro Stara. Don't know who he is, never heard of him before. And he says, Charlie, what are your goals in life? And so, or he asked me a link request. So I gave him and accepted his request. And then he answered back, hey, Charlie, great to meet you. What are your goals? And I go, well, right now, my goals is to just get through this COVID thing and this process and focus on my family and my business a little bit and here and there. And then it was hey, sounds like a great plan, Charlie, good luck. Anyways, it kind of stuck with me because of the picture and the things that he had. And he was a guy who's in really good shape, and he had a thing called, I didn't even know what it was. So anyways, I got back on my little deal, and I was able to drop 10 or 15 pounds. So I weighed, the day that cardiologist was talking to me, I was laying in a hospital bed, and I weighed in at 262 pounds. That's what the hospital bed weight scale said. So way over. Anyways, I was able to get it back down, obviously, to 251 on my own before I got into the program with Mauro. And I told my wife, Lisa, I go, you know what, I need to do something, but I've done this so many times on my own, and it doesn't work. It doesn't stick. So if you continue to do the same thing, you're going to continue to get the same result. We all know that. We've all been trained on that. We've heard it 1,000 times. So I needed to do something different, and I'm a program guy. I like a program. I like something that I can see the success before me, that it's already been figured out, and I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And obviously going up the weight, down the weight, up the weight, down the weight, I'm not a very good inventor of the wheel. So I remembered this guy, Mauro Stara. And so I searched him out, and I sent the thing, and I said, hey, Mauro, Charlie Slater, we talked about this, blah, 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 blah. Tell me about what you do. And Mauro sends me back the Mauro answer, why? You want to know that? So instead of just telling me what he does, he wants me to engage with him, and it's his way of qualifying his clients, which is smart, because as I can talk about a little bit later, it's not a program for everybody. Let's just say it that way. And so that's how this all got framed in, and how this all got started was because of that LinkedIn message and Charlie on death's door, and realizing I really needed a resource, and I needed a coach. And I remembered a very brief 2-paragraph conversation with Mauro a year before. So that's how we're here.
Very, very interesting to also hear your perspective, but also how, or what you went through over the course of the last decades with your heart health and your overall health. And even though you had some warning signs, it took you pulled the trigger when the third time something happened, and it was like suboptimal, we could say, if we want to put it that way, in a nicer way. But you still made the change, and this is ultimately what counts, right? That you made the change. And I believe many guys at your age, they not just I believe, I know it, and I hear it in weekly or monthly conversations. They will write it off, it's like, oh, it's just age, and I'm getting older. It's okay to be out of shape and not be healthy. And they just settle for the status quo. But you, what I really appreciate about you is you didn't, like you said, you know what, like I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna work hard. And that's why we're having this conversation and this mini interview here today, because of that. So obviously, one of the reasons why many people are also listening is are the results. So what would you say are some of the results that you have achieved over the course of the last 6 months? Maybe if you want to share like the weight loss number that we talked about initially today, but also how you feel, like energy wise, hunger, cravings, vitality, anything you want to add there?
So I would say it started off with Mauro setting this up when we very first started. He said, "Why do you want to do this? What is your motivator?" And I had to sit back and think about that. And I go, well, yeah, the cardiologist told me I got to lose some weight and eat better, but that's not why I'm here, because anybody can do that. And so he really made me think about, what do I look to get out of this? And I came up with it. And I went, I want to blow out 80 candles. I have a 3-year-old grandson who sees me as one of his father figures in his life. He's lucky to have 3 of them. And I have a 10-year-old grandson, and I have a son and a daughter and a wife, and I want to be there for them. And the cardiologist had told me that day, if you continue what you're doing without making any changes, Charlie, in 5 to 8 years from now, give or take, you're going to have another event, and it's going to be ugly. And it is a very high probability it's going to be fatal. So that's what made me come back and think, why do I want to sign up for this? And it was to blow out 80 candles. So that became the focus. And it became such a committed focus that I knew the only way to make this work this time was to go all in. And when I got in, started with the Kinetic method, it's a lot to take in at first. It's just an overwhelming amount of information. There's not one single area I will have to say of my life that's the same from January 2nd, was the last day of Charlie on his own, to January 3rd when I started Kinetic method. So from January 3rd to now, there's nothing that's the same. Everything has changed. Attitudes changed, outlooks changed, bodies changed. My health has changed. Everything's changed. My heart is more healthy for a lot of different reasons. But so the goal became focus on blowing out the 80 candles. Live. Give me another 20 years, and I got to do the work, and I get that. So it was diving in, and I found the easiest way to start was to just follow the program to the letter. But to simplify it, I can't figure out the macros, every single different meals. I mean, by far, the hardest part of this for me, or not hardest, but the most difficult part to grasp was the food. The workouts, okay, Mauro programs them, you just boom, boom. I just follow along right with what the screen says. And if I don't know how, I just watch the video, and you get the method in, and then you get it. And then Mauro watches and he goes, yeah, that's pretty good, but you still aren't doing it right. Watch the videos again and then get it right. And so food was definitely the most difficult thing. So I figured out just a very quick breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I figured out like 3 different ones. So there was a little bit of variety, but it was all basically the same. And just followed that to the letter, followed the workouts to the letter, because it's like anything else that's brand new to you, a new job, a new system, a new business, a new product launch that you're going to have, whatever. It's all brand new. So you immediately retain the easy stuff the first couple of days, but then everything else just starts spilling off. You can't retain it because it's just too much. It's just too much information. So you got to get past that part and get to the sponging part where you actually start retaining it. And so for me, at 54 pounds down now, obviously that's a nice result. The the muscle that I build even at 60 years old, it's still there, and it's way more formed than it was from January 3rd when I started. And the attitude and the energy level and the stamina and all of those things. I mean, I can tell you every aspect has changed. So it's a complex program with many different levels of results is the best way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm. And would you say there was something that was an unexpected but positive surprise now that you look back, that you didn't think you would get from doing this program?
Well, I would say the biggest surprise that I learned was, help me if I say this wrong, visceral fat.
Yes, visceral fat,
Visceral
around the
fat.
organs.
Yes. Well, before I started this, my heart would skip 20, 30, 40 times a day. Just it would sputter and skip. And after losing, I'd probably say after I hit about the 30-pound mark, that started to go away. And so one of the things that I learned was it was probably visceral fat disappearing off my heart. So my heart was being, well, I don't want to say suffocated, but pressured or whatever from visceral fat all around it, which is probably one of the reasons why the cardiologist says you got to start losing fat and a lot of fat, because she probably understood that your visceral fat's going to go as well. And if I remember the program right, it's the first fat to go. So one of the biggest surprises to me was the benefit of that visceral fat going away. And all of a sudden, I don't have that heart skipping. It's a very hard thing to describe, but you're basically just sitting there having a conversation with somebody and your heart will just start sputtering and skipping inside. Almost sometimes they'll take your breath away. But I don't have that at all. Zero, gone, completely vanished.
Beautiful. Yeah, part of it is what you said with the visceral fat, but the other one is definitely the walking and the resistance training part, which it's not that they're separate with the visceral fat in that sense. Like when you do one thing, aside from the fat loss, that will also speed it up or amplify it. But definitely the walking will improve your overall cardio levels, even though it's lower intensity. And that will also improve your heart health and many other things that you've improved as well.
Another
which you're doing.
surprise for me was the longer that I've been doing it, the more intense I go about it. So when I first started getting 60, 70,000 steps in a week, that was work. Of course, it's below zero outside here till May, but that certainly has an effect to it. But still, you get 60, 70,000 steps, and I would have to work at that, carve out the time. I mean, it's just an enormous amount of time. So there's a lot of life changes you have to do to fit this in. Now, I do 120, 130,000 steps a week, and the workouts, it's not that I missed them before, but it would say do 5 to 8 reps. And that's what I did, 5 to 8 reps. And of course, I've got heart issues. And so Mauro and I have been kind of careful about the weight. And when I first started, it was just using 2-pound, 5-pound weights, just because, I mean, Mauro was gracious enough to take on a heart patient. Most folks and most programs that do that, I call them up and I say, I kind of got a heart history, click, they hang up and you're like, what? So, but Mauro wasn't afraid of that at all. He said, well, let's just start off really small and we'll work from there. So now, and we've worked all the way up and I'm lifting 30 pounds, well, 30-pound dumbbells. Now there's a couple of those that I could increase it even more, but I don't have any more weight. And some of the exercises that we have, I got arthritis in the shoulder and I got arthritis in my wrists, etc. So I learned going to failure. So when I'm doing the workouts now and it says 5 to 8, I don't pay attention to how many it says anymore. I just pay attention to, okay, this is the lift and I go to failure. And I've learned, I can really struggle and really pull and really go, and that's pointless. I just go until either A, it starts to cause pain, and then I know I got to stop because I don't want to screw something up and then I can't do workouts for a week or two. Or I go until I just physically can't, without shaking and straining, until I physically just can't pull it up anymore, and then I'll stop. So there's the surprise of how much longer you're in this, the more intense you tend to go into it. Like I say, I mean, I don't know what it was. I think it was 137,000 steps last week. But I'm very active. I got a lot of, I call it choring because that's what the Amish up here call it. When you got a lot of chores to do, we have 10 acres of land, so there's a lot of chores to do. So when I'm choring an awful lot every day, so it gets a lot of steps in.
One good way to get the steps in, right? Instead of
it is
having to run on the treadmill, it's a lot better going outside, especially with the videos you send me. They're always, or the photos. It's always good to watch and get some fresh air and sunlight. Yeah,
I know. I'm dreading this winter when it's below 0 out and I'm packing the basement on the treadmill, but that's where I'll be.
That's a commitment then, and I really like what you just shared with the workouts. Like if someone told you in January 2nd or January 3rd, hey Charlie, like in 6 months from now, or even earlier, 4 or 5 months from now, you will be pushing really hard and you will not have enough dumbbells because you're so strong, I'm not sure if you would have believed that, right?
I wouldn't have believed the working out, number one, because I've never worked out. I mean, I've had club memberships and all that, but that was, real passive. It was the thing to do. You wanted to be in the social circles. Oh yeah, I belong to that club. And oh, you do? Yeah. It's, no, I got a membership there. But it was, I'm not a guy that's ever really worked out or ever lifted or any of that other stuff. So yeah, it would have been a big surprise for me to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. What would you say about the sustainability? Do you feel, because that's the most important thing, right? What's the point if you start something, get the results, and then you can sustain it and can keep it? So would you say, everything we've done so far with the kinetic method, is that something you can sustain for the next 20, 30 years? Or would you say like, yeah, by the end of the year, I'll go back to the old Charlie?
That's an easy one, because there's not a chance in hell that I will go back to the good time Charlie party guy and eating ribeye steaks 3 times a week and the Oreo cookies before you go to bed. It's just the result of that. I've lived that for 30 years, and that's just not where I want to go. 3 heart attacks, open heart surgery. That's what that gets. So this next life, if you want to call it Charlie 4.0, that's what I call it, is where we're going to go. So the sustainability of it, because now I got the system. Now I know what to do, and I kind of know what to expect. And I'm still not 100% there, as you and I've talked about. I lost the 50 pounds, and I look in the mirror and I go, there's still fat there. And so Morrow was right, because the doctors were wrong, because the doctors said you need to weigh between 205 and 210 pounds. Well, they're absolutely wrong. And I know, because 210 pounds, that's 15 pounds more than what I am right now. And I can look in the mirror and I can go, there's another 15 pounds that has to go. I can see it, just simply looking in the mirror and see it. So yeah, it's something that I can do for the rest of my life, to be honest with you. And, I'll say things like, it's hard and it's a lot of hard work. And it is, because when you first start losing 70 pounds, if that's the thing, which with my case, that's what it's going to wind up being, somewhere in there, give or take. It took 30 years to put the 70 pounds on. And hopefully within a year or less, that's what it's going to take me through the effort. Well, that's not going to happen by not doing 130,000 steps and not doing the 3 workouts a week and not and sitting around eating whatever you want. So it's hard work to start with that and to get that off. But I think once that's all done and finished, the maintenance part of this seems like a walk in the park to me. You just keep your head and don't blow it by going back to all those old bad habits that were there before.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's always the most important part, that you see it as a long-term thing, and obviously it takes work. And as you said, it's definitely not for everyone. Not everyone is willing to put in the work, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as they're honest with themselves. But if you put it in and you like it and you like the results you get and you can sustain it, then that's really the beauty about this. I'm really curious about this one. Would you say you were skeptical that this program would work for you with everything that you've went through before?
Nope.
No?
I had well, no, I seen your pictures. I seen your clients' pictures, and I can read the program and I can see what all it does. It's not just, because most of it is Charlie, just stop eating the Oreos and come to the gym and do this and get your treadmill, and it's just kind of whatever. What I came and what made me select your program, not that I researched a whole bunch, just a couple, and I said, this is the one. This guy's got it. He's got it down. I think he's cracked the code on this, because it's the diet and the meals and setting your macros. And Mauro doesn't sit and go, okay, I want you to eat this. I want you to eat this. I want you to eat this. He wants you to figure it out, because he can't be there and can't stand with you at the grocery store and hold your cart and say, grab that, grab that. You got to go do all that stuff on your own. And so you got to ultimately you figure out, okay, that's why he wants you to just do it on his own. He doesn't want to just say, do this. And then there's the workouts. So I don't want you to just do what you want. I want you to do these workouts in this order and go with that. And then there is the steps. You got to do the steps. In my case, it was kind of difficult, and maybe part of some of the reason I was only doing 60,000, 70,000 steps in the beginning was I have, as I've learned later, I got a real 1/4 inch heel spur on the bottom of my right heel. And so every step with 251 pounds, every single step on that right foot hurt. There's pain. So 35,000 steps out of those 70,000 steps hurt. I mean, they hurt, but I went through it and I did it because I just had faith in the program. And when I went into this, I went in knowing, and I had full confidence right from the start. And that may be one of the reasons why I dropped those 30 pounds so quickly, because I just followed the program right to the letter. I didn't question it. I didn't try to figure it out or freelance or twist it to my own way of doing it. I just followed the program right to the letter, and the 30 pounds just went poof, gone. So it didn't take me very long at all to go, yeah, this is most definitely working.
Good. I many times I hear like, I'm not sure, I'm busy, the excuses, but it's good to hear your perspective from someone who went all in and knows like, okay, I'm going to go all in, and I have faith in myself and I'm going to make this happen, rather than looking for reasons why this won't happen, right? Or this won't work for you.
Yeah, the Kinetic method is not, the Kinetic method isn't for lip service, won't work in this. You got to roll your sleeves up and you got to get dirty right away, day one, and don't let up, and just and just keep right on going. And my best advice to anybody just starting this out or fairly new or even looking at joining it is just follow the program to the letter when you first start. And then as you get later, you'll figure out a few things. Like for me, one of the things is coffee in the morning. I don't drink a ton of coffee. I never have drank a ton of coffee. And then in Morrow's program, it was don't drink coffee until after 10 o'clock in the morning, and then don't drink any afternoon in the day. But when I first started, that's exactly what I did. And don't put the sweet creamer in there, Charlie, just put monk sweetener in it. And so I did that. Now, today, I can confess tomorrow, I go do a 3.5 mile walk every morning. First thing, that's the very first thing that I do, period, every day, just without fail, because I know when I do that, it's done, it's finished. And when I don't do it, the day sometimes doesn't belong to you and it gets taken away. And it's hard for me to find that hour to get those in. So I do that right away, and I come home and I built this porch for myself, and I sit out there when I get home at about 7:15, 7:30, and I have a cup of coffee, and I use a tiny little bit of organic thick cream in there because it only takes like a teaspoon of it to give you all the cream flavor you need. If you use regular milk, or if you use the plastic fake products of the creamers that they have out now, there's dozens of them. It takes a lot to make it work. But if you just get some organic, nice thick cream. So that's what I do in the morning. After I've got my workout, I'll sit out there and I'll sip a little bit of coffee. And I drink half calf coffee, not full calf, because I just can't. And that's my only little kind of tweak to the program. But I certainly didn't do that the first 3 months, maybe 3.5, 4 months into it. I just followed the program right to the letter. So
wonderful. One last question for you. I know we've been at this for a while, and you've given such many good insights on your perspective on this. So I'd love to have your perspective on one more thing. For anyone who's watching this, who is skeptical about pulling the trigger, what is your word of advice to that person or to that man?
My first advice to anybody that was looking at Kinetic method in a serious way is there's no reason at all for you to have any skepticism about the program and if it works. The only skepticism and hesitation that you should have is about yourself, because you've got to really be a committed hard worker, do it yourself person. You can't be a lazy person in this. You can't be somebody that's going to get into it for the flash of it in the first week or two and a month maybe, and then you're bored of it and you start moving on to something else. This is a lot of hard work. It's every day. It's not something that you can passively go into. You have to go into it knowing that you really got to make a commitment. Morrow sets up all the tools for you, and you can just follow the basic ones, and that's the steps, the meals, and the workouts, and it's going to work. Period. Because your body is no different than mine or Morrow's or anybody else's. You're human. We're all animals. We all got the same chemicals. We all got the same makeup, same muscles. It's going to work a little bit different for you than it did for anyone else, just because you're you, and there are unique things. Like I just learned a few things from Morrow an hour ago about just chemical things within my body that are probably not the same as yours. But it really is going to be how committed you are and what your work ethic is and how motivated you are to achieve whatever it is that your goal is. Mine wasn't to get abs and become the sexy guy on the beach. It just wasn't. Mine was, I want to live 20 more years, not 5. And it is hard work. It is not hard concept-wise. Understanding the meals and the macros and how to make that all work, for me, like I said before, that was the most difficult part for me. And I still struggle with it, because the more you're longer into it, the more your horizon expands on the foods that you start to eat, and then how they interact in the macro numbers. So if you're looking at Kinetic method to consider it, or if you're in the beginning stages and you're like, the scale's not moving, The program itself, there's no question. If you do it, the human body is going to react the same way every single time. So it's going to ultimately, it's going to work. You can hotwire it with the weekly calls that Mauro does. He'll have the calls, and the calls aren't just to, you know, have conversations. Those are what I would consider, for lack of a better description, those are hacks into the Kinetic method program, that if you do this, you can accelerate from just the steps, just the meals, and just the workouts. If you implement these things, you're going to get the results that you're looking for faster, or you're going to build muscle quicker, or that's what the reason for the calls are for. Therefore, like sleep, for instance, like the other things that Mauro does, like rucking, for instance. Those are things you're going to take the steps anyways. Why not put a 20-pound bag on and get more benefit out of doing it? You're doing it anyways. For me, rucking isn't an option, because the reason I can do 137,000 steps now is because it doesn't have a lot of pain on my right foot, because there's 54 pounds gone. And it doesn't take rocket science to figure that out. Now, why would I want to put 30 pounds on and then wind up hurting my right foot? But the point is, you can dive in and just do the basics, or you can also implement a lot of the boosting of the program, if you will, of the weekly calls, and some of the things that you learn and things that you can do to maximize the results in whatever category that particular call is about. So, but again, the most thing is, there should be no doubt about the program itself, because science is science, math is math, chemicals are chemicals. But a person's mental state and who they are and what they're about, that would be the biggest variable. And I couldn't put it any other way other than that. The big resistance would be yourself, not the program.
Thanks for all the great answers and insights that you shared here with everyone, especially to this last question. And given your perspective, you know, there are many people out there who say like, oh, you know, he's 25 or 30, he's busy, he's less busy and less commitments, and, you know, the age is stacked in his favor. But in your case, you know, 3 heart attacks, 60 years old, over 50, probably over plus minus 70 pounds to lose. And, you know, just other things that can stand in your way, especially in the beginning with the workouts. And you didn't let that stop you and dictate, you didn't let your past dictate your future. And that's something I really respect and honor. So thank you so much for being here and showing everyone the way to go and how to really break through any excuses that there are. Yeah.
Well, it's been great. It's going to continue to be great, and I'm looking forward for the next 16, give or take, pounds to come off, and then it'll be building a little bit of muscle, and watching a lot of the other guys is fun too. So,
Definitely.